Dean, do you worry about AI crashing kind of in the same way that the dot-com bubble and boom crashed?
Yes and no. Depends on the definition of crash. So comparing it to like today, right? The last week and a half, whatever, this rotation thing, which I explained to you before, has moved out of all the Mag 7 and all the AI buzz seems to be down and it's rotated out. So I don't think it's going to cause an entire market crash like the last time. You know, in the dot-com bubble, there was an entire market crash, which I think also September 11th was attributed a little bit to what happened back then. But it was a complete correction in the market, like a bear market came. Right now, there seems to be like a rotation into different sectors of the market away from all the tech, software, AI, semiconductors. The magnitude, well, okay, let me take a step back. In general, I don't think it's going to be like that, like the entire market crash, as it did, you know, in the dot-com bubble. For different reasons, we could go into a bear market for different reasons. If the rate cuts don't happen soon enough, if they overcook the long rates, we go into a recession. You know, when you get into a recession, you just drop the rates. It's too late. That train's already going downhill. It's picking up speed. It takes forever to slow it down. So maybe for that reason, I'm not saying a recession is coming. Maybe for that reason, that soft landing thing doesn't quite happen. But not because AI pumped the whole market up and just came crashing down and took everything into a bear market. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think for that reason it's going to happen, is my point. The biggest difference that I call out, I think I've talked about this before, right? The tech boom in the dot-com era was completely out of control compared to today. In terms of companies, stock prices being driven up, you just have a .com next to your name. So much capital flowed to it. And then you have, you know, the famous Henry Bloodgett back then. You know, he was a big time tech analyst and everything got pumped. You know, if Bloodgett said that was a good company, everyone bought it, for example. I'm not blaming a single person, but that was the environment, you know. It was just so much hype. I think there's a significant difference today because the hype on artificial intelligence initially was Nvda, Supermicro, ARM, Arista Networks, you know, Monolithic Power, all these stocks that were just right in this AI world was getting pumped so far. Mag 7, for example, Apple AI has AI coming. Amazon's part of it. Meta's part of it. You know, Nvda is part of it, right? All that. It was specifically on like just the AI aspects of things, but it didn't bring the rest of the market. There was, you know, now I think the difference is in the dot-com era, it was the whole market went with it. Now we see this little correction, not little, kind of a significant correction. You know, if you look at the main AI companies that were running like crazy, if you look at their charts, you know, it's weakened. But instead of bringing the rest of the market down with it, you know, it's rotated into like small caps and stuff. So my point is, if we see us go into a bear market, it's not because AI was hyped up and the house of cards came down and it dragged everybody down with it, the rest of the sectors with it, dragged the whole economy down with it. You know, that happens is completely for different reasons, because of a lack of, you know, we get into a recession, for example, which who knows. You know, GDP looked pretty good last time as jobless claims keep going up, but it's because of labor force participation instead of more people not having jobs. So it still doesn't look like it, but again, don't quote me on that. I don't know. I'm no economist, you know. But I think it's a different world right now. The biggest thing, like I said before, is the AI companies now that have been going on this crazy run are cash flow generating, are profitable companies. As opposed to the dot-com bubble, you know, there was this company that sold books, remember? That company didn't make any money back then.
Yeah.
And the concept was not proven yet. Now, no doubt, there's a lot of companies back then to today that back then was just too early for that run that they took up. But they ended up being viable household names today that we couldn't live without because of the internet, right? PayPal digital payments platforms, right? That was a new thing back then. Auctions, new thing back then.
eBay.
Right? Amazon selling books. Now what do? You buy everything from Amazon, right? So maybe a little too early for its time, and maybe a little too speculative back then. It was still too early for its time. One big thing I think that I'm basing what I'm telling you on right now is if you look at like the top player back then in the dot-com boom compared to today is Cisco Systems, Nvda. Today's valuation multiple on Nvidia is something like 40 plus 50 times something. Cisco was over 100. That's bubble. Today, maybe a bubble, but a little bit not quite to the extent of what it was then. And I think also the difference was back then, anything that every company with a .com next to it was looked at as the ability to change everything the way you live by doing everything on the internet. I think today is a little bit different. Because artificial intelligence is not just, large language models and you using an AI app, Copilot, Gemini, or whatever it is, and doing stuff. There's so many other implications behind it. We don't know that yet. All the analysts or that stuff that I read, say this, say that, but you really don't know yet. Like, there's, artificial intelligence can add value to almost anything. Anything. Doesn't have to be on the internet like it was before, right? It can help, clinical trials on drugs. It can help. I can go on and on and on. All the cool things you get that it can affect us more so than just doing everything on this new thing called the internet. That's just my take on it.
Cool.